All right, so get this.
Yeah.
Our listeners sent us a real humdinger this time. We're diving into the murder of Vicki Barton.
Oh, yeah.
A case straight out of Springboro, Ohio, back in 1995.
Okay.
And to untangle this web, we're using audio excerpts from the 48 Classic Scared to Death podcast episode.
It's a case that starts like a dream.
Right.
Vicky, you'll hear, was all about horses.
Okay.
Her and her husband, Jim,
Mm-hmm.
a police lieutenant no less,
Oh, wow.
they poured their hearts into building their own horse farm.
Wow.
Locust Knoll.
Nice.
Imagine their own slice of paradise.
Yeah.
Just like the Ponderosa.
Okay, so picture this.
Right.
April 11th, 1995.
Okay.
Jim comes home to find Vicky murdered,
Oh, no.
shot 3 times execution style.
Wow.
But here's where it gets weird.
Okay.
The house. It looks ransacked, like a
Mhm.
burglary,
Right.
but valuables are just sitting there untouched.
Mm.
Almost no fingerprints.
Okay.
What they did find was a bite mark on Vicky's body.
Yeah.
And that becomes a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
The early investigation focuses on a mysterious driver
Okay.
Vicky had encountered earlier that day,
Right.
but it leads to a dead end. Years go by and the case goes cold.
Oh, wow.
Then 1998 rolls around,
Okay.
and a career criminal named Gary Henson makes a claim that throws a wrench in everything.
What's that?
He says his half-brother, Will Phelps,
Uh-huh.
confessed to killing Vicky.
Oh, wow.
And get
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
Henson even knew about the bite mark,
Huh.
something the police hadn't revealed publicly.
Wow.
You'd think they'd be close to cracking the case now, right?
Yeah. I would think so.
Well, not so fast.
Not so fast now.
They exhume Phelps's body,
Right.
run a DNA test,
Okay.
and it's not a match. Plus, Henson, let's just say his word wasn't exactly bond. So we're back to square one.
Back to square one.
The case is ice cold again. Fast forward to 2002, and a fresh set of eyes enters the scene.
Okay.
A cold case team led by Captain John Newsom.
All right.
They start digging through the evidence, and that's when they stumble upon a shocker.
Got that.
Jim Barton's 911 call
Mm.
from the day Vicky was murdered.
Okay.
What's fascinating here
Yeah.
is a single line from the call.
Okay.
Barton can be heard saying, I got to call Phelp man.
Third man.
Now,
Yeah.
immediately, this sparks debate.
Oh, really?
Is he saying Phelp, as in Will Phelps,
Oh,
or simply for help?
Oh, I see.
Remember, at
Yeah.
this point,
Yeah.
there's no solid connection between Barton and Phelps.
I see.
And that's when the cold case team circles back to Gary Henson,
Okay.
and what he says next, well, it flips the script entirely.
Wow.
Remember,
Uh-huh.
Henson initially claimed his brother acted alone.
Right.
Now he drops a bombshell.
Oh, boy.
He says Jim Barton hired Phelps to scare Vicky into leaving the farm,
Wow.
the alleged motive.
Hmm.
It's a bit of a stretch, to be honest.
Okay.
Apparently, there
Yeah.
was an unwritten rule in Springboro
What?
that the police chief had to live within city limits.
Ah.
Barton wanted to be chief,
Okay.
and Vicky, with
Yeah.
her deep love for the farm, would have refused to move.
Oh, I see.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So this hinges on the word of a known liar, right?
That's true.
Plus, it paints a completely different picture of Jim Barton
Right.
than what we saw at the beginning, the
Okay.
grieving, devoted husband.
Yeah.
You've got to be wondering,
I am.
what's the truth here?
And to add another layer of complexity,
Okay.
Henson maintains that it wasn't Phelps who actually pulled the trigger, but an accomplice.
Oh, wow.
To this day,
Uh-huh.
that accomplice remains unidentified.
Wow.
So you've got a case built on shaky ground,
Yeah.
a questionable motive, a star witness with credibility issues,
Mm-hmm.
and a lack of physical evidence directly linking Barton to the crime.
Right.
What we've done is set the scene,
Yeah.
introduce you to the players,
Mm-hmm.
and highlighted the initial twists and turns.
Boy.
But this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, boy.
So we left off with Jim Barton,
Right?
this well-respected police lieutenant,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly facing accusations
Yes.
of orchestrating his own wife's murder.
You're probably thinking,
Yeah.
wait, is this the same Jim Barton we heard about before?
It's almost like we're dealing with two different Jim Bartons, right? In the beginning, we had the image
Yeah.
of a loving husband
Mm-hmm.
devastated by the loss of his wife.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
the prosecution is trying to paint him
Right.
as this cold,
Yeah.
calculating individual
Mm-hmm.
willing to do whatever it takes
Wow.
to climb the career ladder.
And that's what makes this case so intriguing.
Right.
And so challenging to unravel.
Yeah.
The prosecution's case relied heavily
Yes.
on circumstantial evidence.
Right.
And, of course, the testimony of Gary Henson, a man, as we've established, with a history of dishonesty.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this giant jigsaw puzzle.
Uh-huh.
And some of the pieces are missing.
Yeah.
And the ones we do have,
Right.
well, they don't quite seem to fit.
I see.
So let's talk about the trial itself.
Okay.
How did the prosecution try to convince the jury that Barton was guilty?
They focused on a few key points. First, they really tried to hammer home a connection.
Right.
Between Barton and Will Phelps.
Okay.
The man Henson claimed was hired to scare Vicky.
Right.
They brought in a former waitress.
Okay.
Who testified that she had seen Barton and Phelps together at a diner.
Oh, really?
Multiple times. But didn't Barton completely deny knowing Phelps?
He absolutely did.
Oh, wow.
He insisted that he'd never even met Phelps and that Henson was fabricating the entire story.
Wow, so you've got a convicted felon's word against the word of a decorated police officer.
That doesn't exactly scream open and shut case, does it?
You're picking up on the nuances here.
Aha!
And Barton's defense attorneys zeroed in on that very point.
Okay.
They argued that it was ridiculous to think that a seasoned cop like Barton would be caught dead associating with someone like Phelps.
Wow.
But the prosecution had another ace up their sleeve.
What's that?
That infamous 911 call.
Right, that I gotta call Phelps man line.
Did they ever definitively figure out what Barton was actually saying?
That's the thing. They didn't.
Right.
Both sides called in audio experts to analyze the call. The defense argued that Barton was clearly saying, I got a call for help.
Okay.
The prosecution, of course, insisted it was Phelps.
Right.
Ultimately, it became this battle of syllables.
Wow.
Leaving the jury to decipher which interpretation they believed.
It's incredible how much of this case boils down to interpretation and perception.
Yeah.
It's like trying to crack a secret code.
It is.
And that's where the lack of concrete physical evidence becomes so crucial without a smoking gun. The prosecution had to convince the jury that the circumstantial evidence and Henson's testimony, despite his shaky credibility, painted a clear picture of Barton's guilt.
So did the jury buy it?
Well,
did they find him guilty?
They deliberated for a significant amount of time, which suggests they grappled with the complexity of the case.
Yeah.
In the end, they found Jim Barton guilty.
Wow.
But not of murder, of involuntary manslaughter.
Okay.
It wasn't the outcome the prosecution was hoping for.
Right.
But it was still a guilty verdict.
Wow. So even with all the doubts surrounding Henson's testimony and the lack of physical evidence tying Barton directly to the crime, the jury still believed he played a role in his wife's death. How did Barton react to the verdict?
He was devastated, as you can imagine.
Of course.
He maintained his innocence throughout the trial and continued to do so even after the verdict.
Wow.
He was facing a prison sentence.
It seemed like this was it for him.
Yeah.
A tragic fall from grace for a man who was once so respected.
It did.
But you mentioned earlier that new information surfaced after Barton was convicted. What happened?
That's where the case takes an even more dramatic turn. While Barton was serving his sentence, 3 inmates came forward, each claiming that Gary Henson had confided in them about the case. And what they revealed was explosive.
Okay, now you've really got me on the edge of my seat.
I bet.
What did these inmates say?
They claimed Henson had admitted to lying.
What?
About Barton's involvement.
Seriously?
One inmate, Danny Ray Clark, testified that Henson told him he didn't know if Mr. Barton was involved or not.
Wow.
And he didn't care.
Hold on. If Henson didn't even care if Barton was guilty or not, why would he testify against him?
Yeah.
What was his motivation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
The other 2 inmates claimed that Henson told them.
Okay.
He felt pressured by the prosecution to testify. They said Henson was afraid of facing obstruction charges if he refused to cooperate.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are we saying that the prosecution
It's possible.
Might have coerced their key witness into giving false testimony.
It's a serious allegation, no doubt.
That's huge.
And it throws the entire foundation
of
the prosecution's case into question.
Yeah.
If Henson's testimony was fabricated, what else about their case might be shaky?
So what happened next? Did they give Barton a new trial based on these revelations?
His lawyers certainly tried.
Okay.
They argued that the inmate's testimony was credible.
Right.
And that it cast serious doubt on the validity of the original guilty verdict.
Yeah.
But despite hearing this new testimony, the judge decided not to grant a new trial.
Seriously? So even with multiple people claiming the star witness had lied under oath, Barton was still stuck in prison.
Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
The judge ruled that the inmate's testimony wasn't enough
to
overturn the jury's decision.
Wow. This is just mind-blowing.
I know.
You have a case built on questionable evidence.
Right.
And the word of a man who, by multiple accounts, admitted to lying.
Yeah.
And yet the justice system seemed unable.
It's true.
Or perhaps unwilling.
Yeah. To rectify what many saw as a miscarriage of justice.
It really illuminates a potential flaw in our legal system.
Right.
Sometimes getting to the truth is a complicated and imperfect process.
Yeah.
And in this case, the truth remains elusive.
It does. And to make matters even more complicated,
some
of the jurors who voted to convict Barton even expressed doubts after hearing the inmates' testimonies.
Oh.
This whole case is a tangled web of unanswered questions.
And that's exactly why we wanted to bring you this deep dive. The Vicki Barton case is a prime example of how even seemingly straightforward cases can be full of ambiguity and uncertainty.
So where does that leave us?
It does.
Jim Barton was in prison for a crime he may not have committed.
Right.
And Gary Henson's motives are still shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
It's a truly tragic story.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And it serves as a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice, while noble,
isn't always clear-cut.
Right.
Sometimes the truth is like a moving target.
Yeah.
And even when you think you've grasped it, it slips away, leaving you with more questions than answers.
Well said. That brings us to the final chapter.
It does.
Of this captivating saga. Okay, so we're back.
Yeah.
With the final chapter of our deep dive into the Vicki Barton case.
Right.
We've been through a maze, of conflicting accounts, questionable evidence, and so many lingering questions.
It's true.
It's enough to make anyone wonder if truth can ever really be found.
You've been following the story closely.
Yeah.
From the idyllic farm setting, shattered by murder, to the suspicion falling on a seemingly upright police lieutenant.
Right.
And then the reliance on a career criminal's testimony for a conviction.
And just as we were grappling with that, you discovered those bombshell revelations from fellow inmates who claimed that Gary Henson, the key witness, admitted to lying about Jim Barton's involvement.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really raises questions about the justice system itself.
It does.
But let's get back to the story.
Okay.
What happened to Jim Barton after the judge refused a new trial?
Right.
Based on those inmate testimonies.
Yeah.
Was he destined to spend years behind bars for a crime he swore he didn't commit?
You might think so.
Yeah.
But remember, this is the deep dive.
That's right.
We're all about uncovering the unexpected.
We are.
And this case, well, it throws us another curveball.
That it does.
In 2016,
after
over a decade in prison, Jim Barton's conviction was overturned? Whoa, seriously, after all that time?
After all that time.
Was it those inmate testimonies finally gaining traction? Did the truth finally win out?
That's where things get a little hazy.
Okay.
It wasn't the inmate testimonies that led to the overturning of the conviction.
Oh.
The specifics are a bit murky. But it seems some legal maneuvering happened behind the scenes. Maybe new evidence came to light or some procedural error was uncovered.
So after the investigation, the trial, the conflicting stories, the years of imprisonment, Jim Barton walked free.
He did.
But does that mean he was exonerated?
Well,
did they ever find out who truly killed Vicki Barton?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, wow.
The overturning of his conviction means the state no longer had enough evidence to keep him imprisoned.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually prove his innocence.
So the real killer is still out there.
It seems that way.
After all these years, the murder of Vicki Barton remains unsolved.
Unsolved.
It's chilling, isn't it?
It is a sobering thought.
Even with all our investigative techniques and legal processes, sometimes justice remains out of reach.
And it forces us to confront some hard truths about our systems.
Right.
How reliable is eyewitness testimony, really?
Yeah.
How do we navigate the complexities of cold cases?
Exactly.
And perhaps the most fundamental question of all.
Yeah.
What is truth? And can we ever truly know it?
This whole deep dive has been like riding a roller coaster, hasn't it?
It has.
It began with this heart-wrenching story of a woman who loved horses, her life cut tragically short.
Yeah.
Then we were plunged into a whirlwind of accusations, conflicting narratives, and motives that never quite added up.
What stands out to me is how vividly this case highlights the human element woven into our justice system.
Yeah.
It's not just about cold, hard evidence and legal arguments. It's about people.
Yeah.
Their memories, their biases, their motivations.
And how those very human factors can sometimes lead to outcomes that feel anything but just.
That's true.
We're left with a mountain of what-ifs.
Yeah.
And questions that may never be answered.
It's true.
What if the initial investigation hadn't stalled? What if Gary Henson had never injected his constantly changing story into the mix? Yeah.
What if the jury had had the chance to hear those inmate testimonies?
We can't go back and change the past. We can only learn from it.
We can.
What we can take away from this deep dive is a deeper understanding of just how complex criminal justice can be.
Exactly.
How fragile memory is.
It is.
And how doubt can linger long after a verdict is delivered.
We've explored the depths of this case together.
We have.
You and I.
That's right.
And while we may not have found all the answers, we've definitely unearthed some thought-provoking questions.
We have.
Perhaps you'll find yourself drawn further into the world of true crime.
Yeah.
Or maybe this experience has made you approach information with a more critical eye.
Whatever you take away from this, I encourage you to keep exploring, to keep questioning, and to always seek knowledge.
I agree.
That's what the deep dive is all about, after all.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the heart of a true crime mystery.
It's been a pleasure. Remember, there are countless fascinating topics out there. Waiting to be explored.
That's right.
Until next time.
Yes.
Keep diving deep.